What is up? What is up? Welcome, everybody. Whether you're catching this on LinkedIn, on YouTube, maybe on Facebook, welcome. My name is Hector Santiesteban, and for much of the last decade, I have been trying to figure out how to create a successful podcast, how to sustain it, and today is about really how to do it in a time that doesn't take all day. So welcome to today's stream. If you guys have any questions, I would encourage you to drop those in the comments. If you guys have any requests or any things that you want to talk about here on these live streams, please let me know. But otherwise, we are going to get right into today. And let me bring up our, let's see, we got this and great. So let's try and switch over here to our, there we go. Okay. So if you guys can hear me okay, let me know. It looks like the computer's doing a lot of stuff, and hopefully everything is coming through okay. But when I was thinking about, how do we make this simpler? How do we make it easier for, how do we make this easier for business owners? Because a lot of times you have a business, you have a million other things to do, and the podcast is really just one small piece of it. But you know that you should do it. You know that it's helpful. You know that it introduces you to, great people in your network. You know that it helps to create top of mind awareness and people see you and kind of create this, this awareness, right? This visibility that helps drive business. I can't tell you how many clients we start working with and they have people who they met and connected with that they would never otherwise, be in the same room with, right? People that they feel like are celebrities or people that they sort of look up to, that now all of a sudden they have a show and those people are willing to have a conversation with them. Those people are oftentimes becoming friends and being connected, and it's really this great entryway into relationships. And that's not even counting all of the people who listen to it. And really what's becoming even more apparent today is that yes, podcast listeners, yes, downloads, those are important. But what's even more important is people like seeing you and trusting you and liking you, and that doesn't have to come from them sitting down and listening to the show. They might see a clip here, they might read a newsletter on LinkedIn, they might see a post or a quote or all of these things. I had a friend recently who said that someone hired them not because they listened to the show, in fact, they had never listened to the podcast like full through, but they had seen clips and different repurposed content over the years, and that's what led them to deciding to hire that individual. And so all that to say, time to apply to the business. We can use that time to, for growth activities, or maybe you just get that back for yourself. So that's really what we're going to get into today is, okay, what's the process for doing that? So we've got a couple of parts of the process here, and I'll kind of dive through and we're not going to go, we'll see. We'll see how we do today. But if you guys want to focus on any of these particular topics, we can. So it starts off with pre-production, right? At the very beginning, what do you got to do to plan? What do you got to do to get things set up? Then we go into the recording. Then we get to the editing, the promotion, and the publishing. And you'll see there's 5 sections here. And if on average, now is everything going to be exact? No, but if on average, each of these parts of the process can take about 5 hours, or excuse me, take about an hour. Well, now at the end of it, we've got it all done, and it's in a nice, tight, quick system. And so this is something that we had developed over, we've produced thousands of episodes now, and obviously when you're doing that, there is a need for some efficiency, and also there is a need for some effectiveness and quality control. And so we're going to talk about all of those things and how we can make sure that things are not just fast, but that they're also effective. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to dive into here is this pre-production one. And this can take, a whole hour. You could do this in 5 minutes, but the pre-production is really what goes on before the interview, right? This could be things like reaching out to guests. These could be things like scheduling guests. It could be like preparing, writing an outline. I even had an individual, I'm coming on a show on Friday, and they asked me some questions. They sent me, like an intake form, or they asked me a series of questions. And usually that's great. That's pretty standard and pretty normal. But what I was really impressed with was that they now took those answers, and I would imagine that they fed it into some sort of AI thing, but they took those answers, fed it into, I can only imagine, but they took those answers and then they gave me back like this sort of outline and this script essentially for the show. Now we'll see how it goes on Friday, and we'll see if they actually stick to the exact script. But what was amazing is that now I knew sort of what to expect. I had some of the questions already ahead of time, and that is all great and amazing. And I am almost certain that it was done with the aid of AI, and as it should be, right? A lot of these things can be done with AI, and so we have we use Notion and Google Docs, but a lot of times what we'll do is we'll create a page for that particular episode. Let's see if we can bring up our Notion page here and show you exactly what I'm talking about. So here we go. So we have this episode that we are producing right now, and you'll see we go a little far out, right? We have this is probably a little bit much if you're just producing one show. But we have in here, we have our production notes, right? Anything that we need to know, what we're creating, right? The sort of the status of it, all of the special links that we need. And then in here, this is where we keep track of all of our tasks, everything that needs to get done. And so when you're doing this in the pre-production phase, you can set that up and you can sort of plan out, what are you going to ask them? What's the conversation going to be at? You can start to develop some titles and start to develop some of the things that we're going to need later on, right? Now, one thing that I will just talk about here is the solo versus interview. I think that if you are listening to this and you're on LinkedIn, so it means that you probably have a business or you're trying to advance your career in some way or sorts, I would say that having a mix of both solo and interview episodes is ideal. It's not like you have to fit it into a box, or just because you only do interviews, you have to only do interviews, or because you only did solo shows, you have to do solo. I would encourage you to do a mix of both, and the reason being is that the interviews, they connect you, right? They're really connecting you with other people, expanding your network, strengthening your network, and also there's something to be said about that association between two people. And so when someone sees, oh wow, this person is, they are talking to so and so, right? There's an imagined even sort of credibility that builds between those people. Just because you are sitting there talking to them, your credibility starts to build if you're talking to the right people, obviously. And so having some sort of mix of both of those is going to give your show the best chance of being successful. Okay, so next is the recording part. And recording, once again, we're trying to get these things on average to be about an hour. And so if you can spend 1 hour a week recording, you're going to be pretty successful with your podcast. I would venture to say that most successful podcasts are doing about that, maybe even a little less. Like, you would be surprised how not how little, but if you are consistent with your recording and you record week in and week out, how much of how much breathing room that can sort of give you. And so when it comes to recording, we do this in two ways. The first thing that we'll do is we'll batch it. And maybe, again, this is on average that we're trying to get things done in under 5 hours. But maybe you take a half a day and maybe you record 4 episodes, or maybe you take a full day and you record 8 episodes. Well, all of a sudden now you've got a month or 2 months worth of content done in one day. And so we'd really encourage you, for those types of people that really enjoy that type of energetic sort of activities, right? Meaning, some people, they do interviews and they get fueled by them, and they do, they record and it's fueling, right? They do one and they're ready for the next one. They do another one, they're ready for the next one. And it's just because that's the way they were wired. I am not like that. I do one interview and I'm tapped. I'm totally sapped of my energy. I remember there were times where I was doing 3-4 interviews in a day, and I was just totally shot at the end of the day. Like, I didn't have any more energy left to put into anything else. And so you've got to kind of read what is your, what's best for you. Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 2. Or, I've worked with clients that they literally will devote a whole day. They'll sit down one day and they will knock out, boom, 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 8 to 12 different episodes. And then now they don't have to worry about recording again for another 2 months even, right? So that batch recording is really, really helpful. The second way that for me, what I do is I have reoccurring interviews. And I you can do this a couple of ways. The first way is you have just one time. You know, one of my friends, Chris Gray, yeah, I'm coming on his show in a couple of months, or a couple of weeks, and he has, Fridays at like 2:00 is when he records. It's like Fridays at 2:00 Central, and it's like, do you want to do it on November 7th, or do you want to do it on November 14th, or do you want to, like, what day? Here we record Fridays at this time. When do you want to record? That's great, because that way it's set, it's regular, you're expecting it, you can plan for it. Amazing. What I do is I'm a little looser in my times, but I use Calendly, and I will make sure that I can only have like a maximum of 2 interviews in a day. And then I will block off times in my day that I know that I can record, right? And so that way, when I send them the Calendly link, it's a little more flexible, it's a little easier, and they can just sort of pick one. But that way I'm expecting it, it's set aside, and it is scheduled, right? I think one of the easiest things for podcasters to get into the habit of is like missing an interview. It's so easy for that to happen. I've seen it happen so many times where they miss a recording, or they skip a recording, and oftentimes it's because week 1 something comes up, scheduling conflicts, bullshit, like whatever, like not it's not bullshit, but like something comes up. Okay, great. Now the next week, what ends up happening is like it's that like going to the gym syndrome, right? Like you didn't go like yesterday, so it's like it's a little easier to not go today, and if you don't go today, it's a little easier to not go tomorrow, and that same sort of thing continues to happen over and over and over again until you look up and they haven't recorded. You haven't recorded in weeks, and that can really put you behind the 8 ball when it comes to production. I would say that a big thing that creates a lot of stress, right? A lot of podcasters record their episodes without any lead time, meaning that they record an episode and that's the episode that they're putting out that week. And that can be a really stressful. They record the episode, they edit the episode, they promote the episode, they publish it. Like it's all very focused effort. Again, I don't have that energy to be able to do that. I have so many different things that are going on that the ability to devote 10, 15, 20 hours a week to just editing and doing one episode is it's not feasible. And so we've had to find other ways to be able to work around that. And so batch and recurring are the ways that we do that. People always ask me what we record on, and I'm sort of recording software agnostic in the sense that I think it's like a Pepsi Coke kind of thing, that some people like Riverside, some people like Zencastr, some people like Zoom, some people like it's really a preference thing. And not only is it a preference thing, but it's also like a hardware and tech thing. For some reason, there are just some computers that don't work with certain softwares, right? Like I can't tell you, we've had some people, for a reason they just can't use Riverside, or for whatever reason they can't use Zencastr. And it's like there's no rhyme or reason. There's no like settings or anything that can be changed. It's just, I don't know. Like I've just chalked it up to, the streaming, gods are out there that are just smiling on us when they want to let us record, and they're laughing at us when, things go wrong. But the recording platforms are, they are important because for a couple of reasons. Obviously, you don't want to record your podcast on Zoom if you can help it. Are there instances, like I had a client today call me because we had some issues with the recording studio and just like everything was going, so they just bring on, because Zoom, they just cap your video. Like your video is only going to look so good because it has to get compressed and squished into these different files, and it's got to go back and forth on their system. And the audio is okay. I'll admit the Zoom audio is pretty good, but the video is so far from being it's just so far from being acceptable that you want to really do everything that you can to use something else that captures high fidelity and the full quality of the video. And so we use all these. We use Riverside, we use Zencastr, we use Squadcast, and I love them all? Perhaps, right? I like them all. They all work, and it's really just like different strokes for different folks. Which one can you figure out? Riverside has background green screens that you can do. Zencastr has, you can do a little bit more editing. Squadcast, you can do it right into Descript. So all of them have their advantages. It's just a matter of finding the one that you like, and obviously the one that works with your setup as well. All right. I'm going to just take a look, and it looks like we're dropping a lot of frames, so I'm sorry here. I just want to take a look to see if everything is working. So if you guys can hear me, let me know. If you guys can't, let me know too, and we'll try and figure something out. But thank you for being here. Again, if you're just catching this like halfway and you don't know what's going on, my name is Hector Santiesteban, and I've spent much of the last decade trying to figure out how to create successful and profitable podcasts. And today is what that is about. All right. Okay, we're still rolling here. So the next part is the editing process, right? And when it comes to editing, it can be a lot, or it can be a little. It can be easy. It can be not. You can make it simple. You can make it really complicated. But once again, we like using Descript because the way that I've likened Descript is it's like a Swiss Army knife that actually works. I don't know if you grew up, with Swiss Army knives, the little red ones that had all of the little things. It had like a knife, it had like scissors, it had like a corkscrew. You had, like multiple different knives. But like the problem was like none of those things actually worked. Like the knives were, they were dull. They went dull really quickly. The scissors never cut anything. They were too small. The corkscrew, it was like, I don't know. What do I need a corkscrew as a 6-7-year-old when I was growing up? So it was just like, it was so like cool in theory, but it didn't actually work, right? If I actually needed to cut something, I would need like another knife, or if I actually needed to use scissors, like those oftentimes wouldn't work. And maybe I just had cheap little Swiss Army knives. That's also possible too. And I've seen so many softwares and so many different tools that try and be that Swiss Army knife because it's so cool. You can do this and you can do that and you can do all these different things. The problem is they don't do any of them very great or very well. Descript is not like that. Descript is actually one of the few tools that like does everything, and you're like, wow, and they actually do it well. There are a few companies out there that have done that, and I think they are one, because what's great is that you can edit audio, you can edit video, you can create shorts, you can create clips, you can create podcasts, you can create reels. I mean, it's really, you can record all in there. Everything is done like right in Descript. And so I'll just pull it up here so you guys can see, at least you guys can see some of the things that that you can do. And I was talking with a friend yesterday, and what was interesting is that he started to use it, and there was a couple of things that he just didn't know how to do, like small minor tweaks. And we hopped on a quick call for a little bit, and within like a half an hour, I think it was even 15 minutes because we were bullshitting for 15, for the first 15. But in 15 minutes, he was totally, blown away by how quickly he could now edit all of his videos. He can edit all of his audios. He can add the captions. He can do little cool transitions. And so like, it really is like, another analogy is like, it's the Canva for video editors. Canva came around, and then everybody thought that they were a graphic designer. It's like, oh, I can do graphic design. Well, Descript sort of did the same thing with audio and video editing, because I am nowhere near an audio engineer, and I'm nowhere near a professional video editor. And with Descript, I can do a lot of both. And so it is just really good. It's just a great tool. So, and the team is great. So really, shout out to Descript for being such a great part of the podcast industry, frankly, and not abandoning us. I think they were, they had their sights set on other types of creators, but I think they came back around and realized that podcasters were a market worth serving. So when it comes to editing, though, we do a couple of things. First thing that we do is we edit the sound, right? And what's nice about Descript is that there's like a single button you can click. It's called Studio Sound. You click it, and it does almost like what a sound engineer would do, right? In a single button click. And years ago, it was a little rocky, but today, whenever I have to use it, I almost am certainly amazed at how well it does it, right? Because it has taken some really bad audio, stuff in the background, like noise, stuff like that, and it just wipes it out. And so you don't have to be like a sound engineer. You don't have to be a sound editor to be able to have really good audio these days. What also Descript makes it really easy to do is to edit the content. And so what we like to do is to clean it up and make sure that our guests and our hosts are sounding really, really good. And this comes from taking out things like filler words, but that's sort of the basics. That I think is less important. There are some where people really stutter, and some people, they really, like, even right now, you might take this part out because I'm not really saying anything. Like, that happens a lot because people try to find their thoughts. And also, I think what's even more important is just to make sure that the episode is cohesive. So you can, pull out parts, you can move them around. Just like you were editing a Word document, you can copy and paste one part of the interview and drop it in another one. And so actually creating a episode flow makes it really easy. Another thing that we like to do with Descript is we'll take bits and segments of previous episodes, and we'll make what we call like a mashup episode, which is like a bunch of different segments from different episodes that you can put together in one. And it's really easy in Descript. It used to be hard to do that when you were just editing audio because you couldn't see what the words were. You didn't know what sections you would grab. You'd have to look at like the little wave and then listen and see not that section, and then listen and not that section. But now with Descript, you get the whole my computer's lagging, so I'm not going to pull it up today. But you get the whole transcript, and you can see it. You can scan it. You can Control F. You can search for it, and then even they got some AI features that make it really easy to be able to grab those clips, add timestamps, chapters, all those sorts of things. So what's also cool is that they've integrated AI in a really effective way. Then we apply the visuals, and again, Descript makes it really easy to be able to do that, right? You can add stuff, lower thirds, transitions, all that stuff can be done right in Descript. Okay. Now so we've got the episode. The great thing about having a podcast is that you don't have to wait for anybody to tell you that you can put it out there, right? You can record a show, you can start a show, record it, publish it, literally in like an hour without asking anybody. I mean, maybe even less. And then there are companies that are pumping out content right now that is so fast, right? They're doing it for like less than $1 episode. Is it great? People call it AI slop, right? I don't know. I actually haven't listened to that stuff. But my point is that you can put it out there, but that doesn't mean that anybody manufacture, at least I would say in the beginning, and until you really start to get hold on some of these algorithmic based platforms, promotion is just part of the job. It sucks, but Apple and Spotify, they are not your friends. Apple and Spotify have no interest in promoting or sharing your podcast, right? Like they really don't. For Apple, podcasts unfortunately are so far down on their like importance list, right, on their priority list, that it's almost a shock that they have kept it going for so long and treated it as poorly, like a stepchild that they never wanted, right? Like that's really how Apple has treated podcasts. And so they don't really have a great discovery algorithm or a great way for people to find new shows. Spotify is a little better at this. In fact, Spotify is one of the only podcasts or audio platforms that I would say has like a legitimate discovery engine. The problem with Spotify, though, is they have their own shows that they are trying to promote, and then they have their own shows that they're selling ads on. And so unless you are one of those people that is in business and in cahoots with Spotify or your show, they really have no interest in you growing. They will allow you to show up to the party, but they're not really going to take care of you, and they're not really going to help you have a great time or have a great experience. That is up to you. Can you utilize some of their features? Can you utilize some of the things that Spotify allows you to do to try and become more visible? Absolutely. But you're going to have to drive people to there until you start to pick up enough speed where, the audience is starting to grow itself, right? Once you hit a certain threshold, people start, the algorithm starts to bring people to you. The challenge is that most people don't give it enough time to get there, or most people's audiences or shows aren't big enough to actually hit that point. And so they're constantly trying to reach this point. And I'll tell you, I've seen it happen so much where you'll look, we've been talking for a long time and we're still only at the we're not even at the last part here. So I've seen so many podcasters burn out before they actually get to the promotion part. And this is like on a weekly episodic sort of basis. Obviously there's a ton of podcasting burnout and that's its own thing. But just on a like weekly basis, some people, they go, oh, I'm just editing. I've nothing left to actually promote it. When unfortunately, that's probably like the most important part. And I'm speaking to myself right now because there are instances and times where I'm like, yeah, I did exactly that because there's so many other things. We put out so much effort and then we have almost nothing left in the gas tank. We don't have anything left in the gas tank. So in those instances, for me, I create systems. I create things that happen habitually. So that way that sort of energy is provided already, or there's some momentum there. And so when it comes to promotion, here's a few things that you want to have ready, right? Have your graphics. Every episode is going to need episode art, right? A square one. Every episode is also going to need a YouTube thumbnail. That's sort of a landscape one. So at minimum, you're going to be creating at least 2 graphics. The videos, we like to create shorts, so the like vertical reels, TikTok, things like that. And then also clips, a little bit longer, 5 to 10 minute, landscape clips are also great things that drive awareness to a podcast, because some people may not be able to sit through the whole hour, but they may be really interested in this one topic. And so if you can pull out that part of the conversation or that part of the episode and you can make that its own standalone video, well, that is much more likely to be able to get traction, right? And then the captions. So what are you going to write? You're going to want to write titles. You're going to want to write descriptions. You're going to want to write summaries, right? Like all of these things are important. And then also it's helpful to write LinkedIn, captions and posts, an email newsletter blast, like all these things that are going to go along with your episode, right? Because the podcast, the audio is obviously one part of it, but that is, I don't want to say a small part of it, but that is a small part of getting people to listen to it. So all these other things in the promotion part get someone actually excited to go and click the button and listen. All right. Looks like the stream is really performing badly today. So sorry about that, guys. I'm not sure why we are sucking so much. But got to do it. And I'll get this content anyways. And so you'll see it clipped up, and I'm trying to walk my talk here. Okay, now we're on the last part, though. The last part is publishing. And this, again, we're talking about on average having each section last about an hour. The publishing side, I can tell you that if you get it down, if you create a little process, if you got your little checklist, you can do this in 15 minutes. It's as simple as uploading a blog, or posting a blog, or creating a social media post or something like that. I mean, it's honestly that simple. You upload the audio, you put in the title, you put in the summary, you click a couple buttons with some settings that you want to do, and then boom, right? Most hosting providers, we use Captivate for our audio, and then YouTube right now for our video. But we use Captivate because what's great about Captivate is they make it really easy. You go into Captivate, you publish it there, or you upload it there, and then Captivate will send it to Apple and Spotify and Amazon Music and all these different places. The only thing that is separate is you have to also post it to YouTube. And so between those two things, though, it can take you literally like 15 minutes. And so when we look back on that, we've got 15 minutes here, let's say, an hour and a half there, or hour 45, let's say an hour 15 there. Now we're at 3 hours. You can have an hour to record, 4 hours, and an hour to prep, 5 hours. Okay. It can be done, right? This can be done if you think about it, it can be done in a day, 5 hours, in, whole day. You can do one hour a week. Or this can be handed off. This can be delegated to somebody. And I think that a large challenge that a lot of business owners have is they don't like to delegate things that they don't know how to do. And so if you haven't done all this, it's really hard to tell somebody else to do it too. And so I get that. And so, but I would encourage you to not feel like you have to do all of it or all the pieces, and find the parts of the process that you can delegate. Find the parts of the process that are not lighting you up all the time. So, all right, that's it for today. So if you caught any of this, if any of this made it through to the audio, Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to throw those down there. And then I would love to know if you have any favorite tools or tricks or hacks that help to reduce the amount of time on your production process. Let me know in the comments. Thank you all for being here. We will see you on the next stream.